Look it up there. Beautiful, isn't it? It's almost as beautiful as my new intro. What if we established a colony on Mars? Who would rule it? What would the laws be? Would you have to follow earthen laws, or could you come up with some all your own? Well, that's the question I put to you today, nerds. If we were to rule Mars as a free planet, how would we? Welcome to Office Hours. Oh, man, that spaceship lands pretty fast. Hello, and welcome to Office Hours, the live component of the facility where good old Professor Kyle opens up his blast doors, as you just saw, and lets you ask him and the rest of the facility staff any old science-y and interesting and you can ask me stuff. And if you want to join the facility, continue on this conversation, you can of course go to patreon.com/KyleHill, where if you sign up at different tiers, you can join our Discord, you get episodes early, you see behind the scenes content, you get members only live streams, all that stuff. But today we'll be joining you for a little bit, like an hour or so live, to give some, let's just say stress-free science-y goodness today. As always, my security team is in the chat, so if you need a link to something, or if you need a link to something, they'll provide it. But if you're spamming, if you're being weird about today's events, nah, we're gonna learn something today, and we're gonna enjoy ourselves for just a few hours. It's all we can do right now. And if you really want me to see your nerdy, sciencey, fun comment, you can use Super Chat. As you can see, a number of people are already using Super Chat. I'll try to get to almost all of them. If I do not see it, still know that you are simping for science in these trying times. As we usually do on Office Hours, we'll be going through a number of different topics. In addition to taking all of your comments and questions for me, we'll be talking about Martian colonies. We'll be talking about, what? That just looks like paper. Oh, but it's not. We'll also be talking about deadly swordfish, like really deadly. We'll be taking one of your recent comments on the last episode of the facility. And finally, we'll be talking about, I put this to Twitter, I wanted to see some of your spooky Halloween engineering social distancing solutions, and a number of you sent me some interesting ones, and I wanted to highlight that because that's something nice, and we're going to be nice today. That's what we're going to do, okay? But like I said, if you really want me to see something, you can try a super chat, and I'll try my best. Like a 50 from, let's check it out. Like a 50 from Elizabeth Calvert. It says, "Hi, Kyle. Thank you for doing the stream today. What do you recommend for a 6-year-old to learn about space? Thank you for being here. He loves your shows and understands a lot of it." Elizabeth, always supporting, always telling me what her little human has to say. I'd say what does it for me a lot of the time to get interested in a subject is to really be wowed by a subject right away. So I'd recommend maybe an intro level telescope and start looking at things like Mars or Jupiter. I'll tell you, the first time I looked down a telescope lens and I saw the Galilean moons, for example, it was awe-inspiring. So I'd start somewhere there. Ashman2K10 says, "Could we use two quantumly entangled particles for instant communication regardless of distance?" No, there's actually a theorem called the no communication theorem that says that with quantum entanglement, there is no transfer of information. So that does sound like a sci-fi-y thing we can do, but we can't. The universe is smarter than that. Faris Alcorti with the 10 says, "Hey Kyle, do you think that they are skipping the moon when colonizing space?" No, the moon is probably going to be a very important way station for further space travel, because getting stuff off of the surface of Earth is much, much harder than getting off the surface of the moon, because the moon has such a lower escape velocity because it doesn't have as much mass. So, oh my goodness gracious. We'll get to the first topics, but we got some what do they call them? What do kids call them? Goats in the chat. So the moon is going to be a very important way station for materials and fuel. Get it up there and relaunch or refuel from there, because it's going to be so much more cost and fuel efficient. We have 100 from Robert Allison. It says, "Hey Kyle, love the new intro. First live stream I've actually caught live. Hashtag simp for science. Hashtag vote science." Yes, as you can see above my head, we're simping. And we're going to be raising money all December as well for a worthy charity. But we're simping for science, and also we're voting for science today. If you have not voted and you are in the United States and you still can vote, turn the stream off now and go watch it in line. Go get in line. If you're in line, even when the polls close, you are legally obligated. You must be let vote. It's the law. So if you haven't voted, no matter how you're going to vote, please go vote. Make your voice heard. That's the important thing today. Thank you, Robert. And then, not to be outdone, Gunner88 with the $300 donation says, "Hey, Kyle, love the show. Won't be able to watch your show for a while, so I thought I should make this one count. Keep up the good work." Well, that's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your very impressive simping. You know what? We're going to do this next topic just for you. Watch this. This next topic is brought to you by Gunner88. So, Martian colony, as I say in the intro of this. Martian colony. How is it going to work? How is it going to run? This is something, to his credit, Elon Musk is already thinking about. Now, if Musk is good for anything, he is good at starting conversations and putting forth big, grand ideas that get people very excited. I mean, I haven't seen people as excited about space since the moon landing, given what SpaceX has done, you know, re-landing rockets, sending cars into space, all this stuff. Elon Musk is good at finding those points that are very interesting to people and then hitting them hard. Cue Martian colony, possible Martian colony. So this came up in the news because I found a wonderful little proposition, or a quote, in the governing law section of the Starlink app. So the Starlink is another Musky venture where SpaceX, or rather, satellites will be put into orbit, thousands of them, and they will help beam internet to basically the entire planet. And they will charge money for this, but the advantage being that you can underserved areas or countries with bad service or no service can now get service and be on the internet, which, you know, is good in theory until you have, you know, social media literally destroying the fabric of reality. But, you know, it's a good idea in theory. So some very keen-eyed observers were looking through the Starlink governing law section, and there was this interesting little paragraph, and I quote, "For services provided on Mars or in transit to Mars via Starship or other colonization spacecraft, the parties recognize Mars as a free planet and that no Earth-based government has authority or sovereignty over Martian activities. Accordingly, disputes will be settled through self-governing principles established in good faith at the time of Martian settlement." What this is saying, more or less, is that if a Martian colony is ever established by SpaceX with SpaceX craft, they will land and then start producing their own Mars laws. And this isn't that far off. I mean, they could start launching these large spaceships pretty quickly, you know, within the next couple of years. And how they're going to popularize the surface of Mars. Sorry, I'm looking at some studies and stuff. Elon Musk has kind of tossed out a goal of 100 starships per year to send about 100,000 people from Earth to Mars every time the planet's orbits line up advantageously. Because Earth and Mars are not synced up on the same orbit, they pass each other and one goes faster. They're closer to each other at certain times of the year or not, so it's easier to send spacecraft that way. And someone asked him, you know, well, are you planning on sending 1 million humans to Mars by 2050? And Elon Musk said, "Duh, bro, and they're all going to have anime on their spaceship." So this is interesting because we haven't had this question before. And this is, again, what I like about Musk is that he engenders interesting questions. So I don't have an answer to this, what laws they should have. They're going to be established in good faith at time of Martian settlement. But I want to put it to you in the chat a little bit, and we'll read some of them, if we can, in real time. What do you think some of the foundational laws of Mars should be? Obviously, they're not going to start from scratch, or, you know, people who are going to be landing on Mars and colonizing Mars are not going to be dum-dums. It's hard to be a dum-dum and do space. And you can quote me on that. So I'm assuming they're not going to be working from scratch. They'll probably, I don't know which way he's leaning, but maybe they'll go, base it on a democratic system with laws and, maybe something based on the Bill of Rights. I don't think they're going to start from scratch. But what would be some good starting laws for Mars? Alex Chi says, don't make it a dystopian nightmare, Musk. Well, to have a dystopia, you must first have a topia. And nothing is established yet, so. Mr. Diglett says, no smoking. We already messed up Earth with that. Well, it's more the carbon emissions. And Mars is going to be a different example because Mars doesn't really have an atmosphere. It has a very, very thin atmosphere compared to Earth. And so emitting a bunch of carbon into the atmosphere, it's just going to escape into space. So, not as much of a problem, actually, the carbon footprint on Mars. And you could warm up the planet with some greenhouse gas emissions, but it would probably start looking like this at the time of colonization. You would have domes or habitats that would be enclosed areas you could live in. Bruce Game says, rule number 1, Elon Musk is our god. You didn't even spell our right. You can't write any laws for Mars. John Washburn says, no xenomorphs for pets. No Martian wildlife as pets. Not until you know that they won't infest your body. Sjors Farla, I'm sorry, I can't say that. No guns allowed like America. Free healthcare, Tesla cars only. I bet they're only going to be Tesla vehicles. Think about that. Think of what he's setting up here. Maybe Musk is thinking long term with this. Is like, well, you have to live in a Musk city with only Musk cars, with only Musk solar roofs. It's almost like he's a super. Chris says, hey, Shile, cov the low. So does the Outer Space Treaty of 67 not apply to the colonization of Mars? I don't know, but it seems like they are rejecting laws that would govern an establishment that they would set up. Magic says, land laws would be a big issue. I think having the ability to have and work the land will be an interesting experience. We couldn't do the same thing we did for Earth, nor should we. Signy says, lots of Mars colonies will be built underground because of radiation. Yes, without the atmosphere and without a magnetosphere, without a real strong magnetosphere, the surface radiation on Mars from the sun is going to be, and from space, is going to be quite high. So all the buildings would need shielding, and you could just use the Martian soil itself as shielding, and most people would probably live underground. Well, what do I know? I'm not Elon Musk. Chris says, let's try the witch trials again. No, there's no water to test if they float. Chris. Solar-powered vehicles. Sword of Alabaster with the 10 says, no explicit laws, just train a neural net to recognize crime with legal training data, so essentially common law. The problem with neural networks and stuff, and algorithmic-based detection of crime and stuff, is that they all have the same inherent human biases that we do because we code them, and then those biases can be more or less weaponized and go and be blind. So you can have this idea that an algorithm has no bias, right? Because it's a computer. But if it's programmed inherently with bias you may not even be yourself aware of, then it can exacerbate those biases, whether that be, racial bias, for example. We've seen algorithms that disproportionately target different races and ethnicities for things, and you wouldn't want that on Mars. Not until we figure it out. Bobby Davis with the 5 says, I've watched and learned from you from what feels like is forever. Keep being evil. How dare you? I am not. Now, I can't prove that, but next month we're raising money for charity. Does that count? Magnetic resonance coupling for wireless power transfer. Could we couple with the Earth's magnetic field? I have no idea. I'm going to guess no. You'd have to extend the Earth's magnetic field. And this is actually an idea for safe space travel to protect yourself from cosmic radiation. Have something on board that can generate such a large magnetic field, it goes outside of the ship and protects you from the charged particles. Chris Early says, hey, show, Kyle the Love. Shouldn't a certain argon oil loving couldn't be like a certain argon oil loving science communicator we all love? Yeah, I'm not a supervillain. Thank you. Anyway, Can Rail with the 10 says, I don't think Outer Space Treaty applies as they're likely establishing a new country. Outer Space Treaty only applies to sovereign nations on Earth from claiming territory beyond Earth. Exactly. If they're living and colonizing Mars, if they're living on it, it seems like a different thing. Stephen Dev with the 99.99. Thanks for doing what you do. Maybe use this to do something nice for yourself and ARIA for getting through this year. ARIA and I are fine. ARIA and I are good. Don't worry about her. She's a robot. She's not worried. And she already knows the election results. Isn't that crazy? So I think everyone's coming up with some good ideas. I think they're not going to start from scratch. But again, with Musk on Mars, I don't know what weird, there's going to be some weird thing. Although, because he is such a nerd, maybe he will do something like establishing like Carl Sagan Day as like a planet holiday. That'd be cool. It's Nate Mate with the 5 says, avoid procreation until the risks for space babies are known. Simping for science. That's not a bad idea. And I'm going to do an episode for The Expanse on this, but gravity affects your body in every way, shape, and form. And in shape and form. Your human body has evolved over millions of years under gravitational influence. And so to suddenly remove a good portion of that influence, like 40% or 60% for Mars, there's going to be weird problems. And you'd probably need to have, if you were born on Mars, different. Over generations, the body might start to change to evolve to this. But humans going to Mars are going to have like training regimen, probably like those on the space station have, to prevent muscle atrophy and whatnot. So, yeah, avoid procreation until space baby is a known thing. But stopping humans from procreating is not something that anyone's ever been good at. Not even, like the Vatican. I'm going to take this spaceship down to Earth. I want to see what you have to say. So, no, it's not a giant monitor. It's just in your face. I'm way back here. I see my spaceship just landed. Easy. I got drones. Bezos isn't the only one with drones, and I have way better hair. Mar the Wanderer says, how about laws based on Andrew Ryan's philosophies from BioShock? Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington. It belongs to the government. No, says the man in Moscow. It belongs to everyone. No, says the man in the Vatican. It belongs to God. I rejected those answers. I chose Rapture. I haven't played that game before. Wolflet with a 50 SEK. Does ARIA stand for something? And did you and Musk go to the same villain school? Musk and I did not go to the same school, and we're not supervillains. If anyone's a supervillain, it's him. He thinks he's Tony Stark, but he's definitely the hammer guy. ARIA does stand for something. I've just never said what. You might be able to figure it out one day. We have Spasmodius 3 with the 5 says, you'll probably have to buy air. I'm going to guess that I'm not going to go to Mars unless the establishment, you can live there. There should be, one of the laws should probably be establishing a basic human rights. Like, and this is an interesting question on Earth today. Like, more modernly, should internet be considered a basic human right? Because so many things operate on it. A lot of times you can't live and work without it. So I don't think you could monetize the air. You could monetize other things, of course. Toady, and The Expanse goes into this quite a bit. Toady with the 5 says, hey, Kyle, love the show. It took me 29 tries, but I finally caught it live. Well, happy to have you here on this most stress-free of days. I can't even say it. Pyrobob with the 5 said, Pyrobob 5 with the 5 says maybe he's trying to pass human genetic engineering laws so he can make those cat girls. I wouldn't put it past him. But also, it's not going to look like you think it's going to look. Gaunt with the 50 Australian dollars. He says, hey Kyle, just want to highlight the importance of water safety and awareness. I had to attend a rescue for a kid. Okay, I'm not going to. This isn't a funny comment. I had to attend a rescue for a kid trapped in a local river last night. Jesus. The outcome was unfortunately tragic. Please be safe around water and know your local area. I am so sorry for reading that in a not serious tone at the beginning. So I'm going to read it again. No, I'm not going to read it again. It's sad. Yes. Please know your environment. If you're a big camper, for example, know heat flash flooding warnings. Know where low-head dams are, as we talked about on the show, because as Gaunt points out, the results can be often tragic. So be aware. Always be aware. And be prepared. Like a Boy Scout. With less cookies. Nathaniel Gingery. With the 10 says, hey Kyle, been a lurker for some time and I figured I should show some love. Thanks for being a bright spot in this uncertain time. It's just the shine on the hair. And teaching us something too. Love the hair. See? Keep up the good/evil work. It's not evil if I haven't been caught. Maybe let's pause the super chats for just a second so we can get on to our next topic. Phrase says ARIA stands for Recursive Intelligent. ARIA stands for ARIA, Recursive Intelligent Acronym. I like that. Is terraforming Mars possible? Says Patty Watts. Not in the near future, not at all. I mean, think of the scale that we've terraformed Earth and how long it's taken. Well, terraforming specifically means turning a planet into a more Earth-like planet, and doing that in a single generation or a human lifetime seems very unlikely to me, just because of the scale of, you'd have to change an entire planet. You have to give an entire planet an atmosphere, for example. So I don't think so. Silvos, longtime supporter, with the 10, a colony on Mars, laws not following Earth's. I feel like I've seen a very accurate space show about this. Yes, it's almost like The Expanse is the best science fiction show since Star Trek: The Next Generation, and you can quote me on that because I'm right about it. Let's go on to our next topic. I forget what it is. I like this because it looks like this guy is researching my hair. How could it possibly be so shiny? Well, that's a little something I call because genetics. But, so, what am I talking about? Why am I talking about these little sheets of paper? Well, they're not just any old sheets of paper. This is effectively reverse Vantablack. So, if you're not familiar with Vantablack, Vantablack is I have it around here somewhere. My heart? No. Vantablack is the darkest material in the world ever discovered, because it absorbs over 99% of incoming light. So no light is reflected, and that makes it dark. It's as though it's like an optic black hole. Vantablack does this with a structure on its surface, a nanoscale structure on its surface, where light will come in to these carbon nanotube trees, these forests of carbon nanotubes, and get trapped so much that it doesn't come back out. And therefore it's black. But this is, they haven't come up with a name for it, but this is what I'm calling reverse Vantablack. This is the whitest substance so far, I think, because it reflects so much of the incoming light. It reflects so much incoming light, in fact, that when you look at, on the right here, you have a normal piece of paper painted white, and on the left you have it painted with this new reverse Vantablack. And what you see is it's not even ambient temperature. So you can see the difference here. White, when surfaces are white, it's because they're reflecting the majority of light that's incident upon it. Not for example, my face, the molecules and atoms in my face just happen to reflect wavelengths of light that look this color. But if you're reflecting all of the light, it's going to look white. And so on the right, you see that that regular white paint is almost ambient temperature. It's a little bit hotter than ambient temperature. It's a little bit cooler than ambient temperature in some areas, but it's close, right? But on the left, with this reverse Vantablack, you see that it's blue indicating cooler. It is much cooler than the surrounding area. It's like almost 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding area. Now, this means that it's reflecting so much light, it's actually cooling down the surface, which is really weird if you think about it, right? To have a surface that's so reflective, it's not even ambient temperature anymore, as it should be. And it's not being warmed by the sun. It's actually delivering heat to the universe. And when you look at it, you see what it's doing here. So you have the cooling paint in the top, in the A section of the figure. And this was a study by Purdue University. We just talked about another study from Purdue. What was it? Who cares? So the solar irradiation, you can say the sky window emission. So these are particles and infrared radiation, same thing, being reflected back out into space. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I did read the paper, and I do have an engineering degree, but I'm not 100% sure why this is working. I do have a good idea. And from the, because papers have a lot of jargon, they don't necessarily explain the jargon because that jargon is specific to the field, and the public doesn't read the paper, so they can say jargon because the only people who are going to read the paper are the scientists who know that. So on the left here, you have this calcium carbonate-based paint and commercial paint. B is the nanoscopic, or microscopic rather, with the mu there, the microscopic view of the calcium carbonate paint. And what you're seeing is what I think is going on. So, as opposed to the Vantablack that have these like literal forests of carbon nanotubes sticking straight up and together in a nanoscale structure where light comes in and then it bounces around so much it doesn't really get out, what I think they're doing is using, and they say this in the paper, what I think they're doing is using different materials, particle sizes, and fillers, as they call it, to create a paint that dries with the minimal amount of these nanoscale structures that would act to absorb more light. So what I think is going on, in layman's terms, is that they created a white paint that is super flat and has no real spaces for incoming light to come in and get trapped in there. So this looks like there's a lot of spaces here. But in comparison to Vantablack, reverse Vantablack is more or less just a flat surface. So I think more light than otherwise is incident on the material and then is being reflected away because there's very few microscopic, nanoscopic areas for it to get trapped. I think that's how it's working. Now, what is the benefit of this? Well, this benefit could possibly be tremendous. If you think about what he's doing there, he's looking at the temperature, obviously. But you think about what this is doing, and this is reflecting what was it, 37 watts per square meter or something like that of radiative capacity, which is, it's not a whole lot. There's 1,000 watts of sunlight on every square meter from the sun, but 37 is definitely nothing to shake a stick at. And if it's so good at reflecting this light back into space, hopefully not getting trapped by more greenhouse gases, but being reflected back into space, which is the ultimate heat sink, then covering large surfaces with this can actually cool those surfaces down. And given how much the temperature difference is here, like up to 10 degrees, they say, if you coated an entire building, or, the roof, but most of the building in this new kind of paint, or paint like this, that building might be able to go without air conditioning because it's just naturally being cooled by reflected light. And if you do this on buildings, runways, roads, any other surface, parking lots, any other surface that's amenable to it, then you can imagine great gains from cooling down the world. So that's a potential benefit of that. Ultra cooling reverse Vantablack paint. How cool is that? Shut up, it's funny. Kryn Firelight, longtime supporter and chatter, says solar power booster. Yeah, maybe. Cedar Benning says, perhaps glibly, solution to global warming, just paint everything white. You might be joking around with that, but yeah, it's one of the solutions that, I mean, it wouldn't be the only solution. Climate change is only going to be solved by coordinated solutions across every industry and everywhere. So it's not going to be just one thing, but this could be one of those things. And if we want to have a coordinated attack on climate change, what we got to do first is vote for science. So if you're watching this stream and you haven't voted yet, and you're an American, or you're overseas and you are an American citizen, you better be in line. If you haven't voted and you're not in line right now, you turn the stream off, you go vote. Make your voice heard, or else your voice don't matter. And as I said at the March for Science, in my opening remarks, I'm voting for science because facts won't matter anymore unless we make them matter. And you can already see, especially in America, facts don't seem to matter. We have to make them matter by making them important and restoring science's place as an apolitical, or a nonpartisan rather, arbiter of truth and information. How else are we going to figure stuff out? America's hardly figuring COVID out. You think climate change is going to be easier than that? Nah, dog. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. We got to do something. Sorry, I'm ignoring the chat. We have 20 from Zalif says, hey, Kyle, love the hair. Well, I mean, who could blame you? How and why does mass produce gravity? That is a very theoretical question. It's a hard question. Like, do you want to get into, like, Higgs field stuff? I don't think so. The introductory to physics answer would be mass produces gravity because it warps the fabric of space-time according to how much mass it has, and things will infall to that mass along the curvature of space-time. And in that sense, gravity is not really a force. If you want to know more about that, you can watch one of the latest videos from my adoptive father, Derek Mueller, over at Veritasium. Rocket Man Michael, spending his days out here alone, says, in order to have laws on Mars, wouldn't you need to enforce those laws with space caps? Yeah. That sounds awesome. Jupilosaurus Rex with the 10 says, would reverse Vantablack visibly give off light in a dark room by reflecting the photons of light that remain? Depends on your definition of dark, right? If there was literally the darkest possible thing or volume would be one in which there is no light at all, or no visible light rather. If the room's going to be some temperature, so it would always be giving off infrared light. But no visible light in a room would be the darkest. In that sense, nothing would reflect off of it, and you wouldn't see it. But in a dim room, or what you'd consider a very dark room where you can hardly see, then it probably would be the brightest thing in that room. Yeah. With no lights. Troll Warrior with the 5 says, hail Purdue. I'm from Lafayette, Indiana. Purdue is in West Lafayette. Yeah, Purdue's, the engineering team there seems to be putting out a lot of cool science. Shane says, hey Kyle, CERN here. It's been 7 months since you made a payment for the super collider you purchased. This is the only way we could contact you. Can you call us? Hey, CERN Daddy. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It sounds stupid. Yeah, regarding the payment, I put it. Yeah, no, on the 25th. How does... I could never pay that off in a million lifetimes. Okay, fine. Hey. If you want to get, I would check your mailbox. Be careful when you're checking your mailbox. Okay. Might be a mini black hole in there. Okay, love you, bye. Oh, I didn't hang up. What were we doing? Kevin Wilshire with the 50 Australian dollars says, okay, I'm going to make sure this one isn't really sad. Okay. Hey, Kyle, first time chatter on your streams. Do you think this paint can be used to help offset the loss of polar ice by reflecting heat outwards? Yeah, see, there's a feedback loop in, and let's pause the super chats for a second so we can get on to our next topic, but there's this very nefarious feedback loop in the Arctic where as ice and the whiteness of snow, reflects a lot of light into space, a lot of heat into space, infrared light. As the world gets warmer, the ice melts, meaning less light is reflected, meaning hotter planet, meaning less ice, meaning less reflectance. So, this is an example of one of those positive feedback loops that it's only going to make things hotter and hotter and hotter. So, by painting over the Arctic with white, I mean, it's not the craziest geoengineering thing I've ever heard, from sprinkling clouds, or like sprinkling the surface of the Arctic with like aluminum oxide and get reflectance back up. It's not the craziest thing. Sheldon with the 20 says, good day to you. Oh, from Europe. I'm going to assume you're European. Good day to you. It's not, you're probably just watching us right now being like, wow, let's see how much they mess up. Good day to you, sir. Had this question for a while. Could an object orbit a binary star system in a figure 8? Thanks for all you do. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Well, I'm a scholar. Could something orbit stars in an 8? If there was 2 circumbinary stars, could something orbit image? I don't know. It sounds like a very complicated system. You'd have to run, I don't know the offhand answer. I would, since I'm not a physicist, I would have to run a simulation to see if there's in fact a stable orbit. There are systems in which there are no mathematically stable orbits, and I don't know if that would be one of them. So I don't know. Gaunt with the 10 says, don't worry about before. I'm just glad that I can get the water safety message out there. Thank you. Thanks for that apology. I needed that one. So let's pause the chats for a second, and let's get on to our third topic, which I forget what it is. I think it's evil swordfish? Haha. Right again. That's a swordfish. Swordfish are inarguably some of those badass fish. Bony things in the water. If you want to call fish bony things in the water, go ahead. But they're inarguably badass. They are the fastest animal in the sea. Like 65 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. That's ludicrous. Like only speedboats that kill a lot of people go that fast. They're super fast. They have a sword on their face. How cool is that? Which they do use to attack prey sometimes. And those are probably the basic facts that you know about a swordfish. My favorite fact is one you probably don't know. They are such active, metabolically active hunters that they have evolved basically veins, a cluster of veins and arteries around their eye, their giant eye, one of the largest eyes, relatively speaking, in the animal kingdom. They've evolved arteries and vessels around the eye to keep the eye 10 degrees warmer than the ambient temperature. So this fish isn't warm-blooded, but it's doing a warm-blooded impression because muscles with more blood that are warmer contract faster, harder, better, stronger. Hope I don't get claimed. But, so these are such, these hunters are so good at what they do. They heat their eyes with blood so that their eyes are quicker, sharper, faster, stronger. I'm gonna get taken down by Daft Punk. I do want one of those helmets, though. So why am I talking about swordfish and their blood eyes? Well, A, it's cool. Shut up. B, it's still cool. But C, something weird started happening with swordfish. Over the last couple of years, there have been reports from fishermen and videos on like Facebook and stuff of people finding sharks, dead sharks, washed up on the beach. And what's weird about that is that, A, most things don't wash up on the beach. And I know that sounds stupid, but I mean most things are eaten, or when they die, they sink to the bottom. So to have a couple, dozen sharks washing up on the beach recently in similar areas, that's weird. Then the story gets weirder. These people were approaching these sharks, and, they're not marine biologists, but it didn't take a marine biologist to figure out what happened to these sharks, because they kept finding these. And what that is the broken off tip of a swordfish sword. I'll have you notice, this is a thresher shark, by the way. Sorry if it's a little graphic, but the hole is right to the right of the sword. People kept finding sharks with swords broken off in their hearts and in their brains. So this started happening so much that researchers, and they say, and this is literally in some of the articles about this, they started talking to each other like, this is like literally like quote like, yo, this is crazy, we gotta investigate it. So that leads to studies. Published last month, deadly interaction between a swordfish and a big eye thresher shark. And when they look into this with fancy science tools, they generate amazing images like this. And what that arrow is pointing to is literally the broken off tip of a swordfish sword going into the brain, and eyes, mouth, brain stuff up there. It's a technical term. But literally swordfish poking sharks in the brain to kill them. Now, if that's not the most metal thing you've heard today, why? I don't know, maybe you were listening to Death Clock, I don't know. This is obviously metal. But what is going on? Well, according to the researchers themselves, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at an article just so I don't misquote anyway. Swordfish usually use these swords not just to, sometimes they pierce them, but a lot of times it's just to stun prey, right? Just getting smacked. So the researchers say, why is this happening? Well, for one, it is another case that shows how aggressive swordfish are, and now I'm quoting them, but more importantly, we can conclude a defensive behavior as a trigger for this attack. It either happened in the heat of the moment when both species were hunting on the same prey resource, like a school of fish or squid. It might have been even a direct attack to get rid of a competitor in the same space. If these attacks increase, the researchers say, it would be an alarming signal for the situation in the Mediterranean, since overfishing might force these two predators to compete for more limited resources. So think about that. If this isn't a natural occurrence, what could be happening here is that we are overfishing and removing the food source for two apex predators, forcing them to hunt much more closely together, literally, physically in space, and temporally in time. And the more these two apex predators interact, the more there's going to be aggressive behavior between them, maybe fighting them off or trying to kill them. And what this has resulted in are human beings and their love of sushi may have caused systematic brain stabbing of sharks in the Mediterranean. So, I guess, okay, here we go. I guess you could call these killer swordfish with their blood-filled eyes irids of the Mediterranean? Oh, it's Caribbean. I'm stupid. I thought I had like a really good pun there, but I'm dumb. But you know what? You're not dumb if you vote today. I want you to vote for science. If you are in line watching me, fantastic. But if you haven't voted and you're an American and you're watching this stream, turn off the stream and go vote. And if you don't vote, I will know about it. I have drones everywhere. see what the chat has to say. We have Emmanuel Urquhart with the 50 ARS. The new Excalibur look... That new Excalibur looks fishy to me. We're only going to do a little bit of Super Chat and chat before we move on to our peer review, but Master of All, always coming in hot with the Australian 5, says, hey, Kyle, how's your fingerboarding going? Have you been able to get back to any bouldering yet? No. All the gyms around the facility, rock climbing gyms, are still closed down, so I haven't been able to. But I did install a fingerboard or a hangboard at the facility, and I wear my climbing shoes as I do it, and I'm assuming that my forearm and my finger strength is obliterated. So I'm not really looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to climbing again. First time I went back before a secondary lockdown, I was climbing. I could hardly climb V6, and I climb at my top. I like flash V10. So if you know anything about what those numbers mean, you know that my ability in those first couple return trips was significantly diminished. So I'm not looking forward to trying to get all the strength back, but I'm staying. Aria and I bought a whole set of weights, squat rack, bench press, hangboard, pull-up bars, all that stuff. We're trying our best to not come back flimsy. And I'm kind of thick these days. The Reishanek with the 10 says, hey Kyle, finally checking out a stream. What are you talking about? You're on the stream all the time. School work and all. Glad to be back. Wife got me a telescope for my birthday. It's now calibrated and it's a clear night tonight. Thanks for the distraction. Yes, I would much rather look at what's going on Mars than in Pennsylvania. Trevor Jerome with the 10 says, I can help answer the binary star question from earlier. See, smart people watch this show. And if you want to be a smart person that watches the show, you can always go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility. You can talk with me all the time. It's mostly about Magic the Gathering, but sometimes we talk about sciencey stuff. Trevor says, stable orbits do exist for a satellite to orbit in a figure 8. Credit to Dr. Kathleen Howell of Purdue for teaching me that. Everyone's so smart at Purdue. And I want to see how smart Purdue are. I'm off form today. People in the chat saying, can you put the links to the studies that you're going through in the video? Yes, I will. After this video publishes, if you go to the comments, I will have a pinned comment with all the references. Peer review. So, as I'm wont to do, every week I go through the comments on the last episode that we did at the facility. I go through them to see if I can find something fun or interesting or controversial or an error that I made. I highlight it. Then Kevin gets you a plaque and a new rule. If the commenter I highlight is watching this, you DM me, and I get you a free pass to the facility for a month. I like them apples. So peer review today is Iron Rick 95 MCOC. It probably means something. But what they say is, in relation to how many could 1 trillion lions defeat the sun? I said, no, it's the sun. But Iron Rick, and we went through a lot of math and some fun calculations. It's not just that. Iron Rick says, to actually defeat the sun with lions, we would need a group of dead lions. Well, they don't have to be dead at the time, but they would be dead eventually. We would need a group of lions that weighs at least 2 times the solar mass to reasonably win the fight. A standard solar mass, the mass of the sun. Although if you want the sun to be totally annihilated, you would need a much bigger star. How do you get that? So, we need 21 octillion lions to compress into a star. That is 21 quadrillion times more lions than there were ever in that meme, so, oh yeah. At the bottom of that comment, they said, check my math to make sure everything's correct. So I did. Well, to me, a high-end weight for a male African lion is 420 pounds. Nice. Who am I, Elon Musk? If you multiply that by 21 octillion, you get 4 times 10 to the 30 kilograms, which I already know is thousands of times more massive. It's a million times more massive than Earth. And it's a little bit below the mass at which stars primarily fuse hydrogen into helium via the proton-proton chain. It is roughly 2 solar masses, as the commenter points out. So I check your math, and it is correct. Now, would this actually kill the sun? Think about it. If you had enough cat meat to start fusion in the core of these cats, I don't know what would happen. It would probably blow away other layers of cat meat. Or would it all become plasma? I don't know. It's a very complicated thing because that's usually not how stars form. But if you put two stars together, then you have one megastar. What you would want to do is give the sun enough mass so that it would collapse. And so maybe that's what you're getting at? And a lot of commenters were saying, well, then how many cats would it take to kill the sun? Well, what you would do, and we could calculate this in a future episode if you really wanted to, but what you would do is supply the sun with enough cat meat so that it would, supernova or black hole or whatever. This does happen in the universe, just not with dead cats. Sometimes there are stars in a certain orbit or a decaying orbit or what have you, and one star will start, with its gravitational influence, start siphoning away. Oh, sorry. Start siphoning. How you like that, headphone users? Going to start siphoning away material. So two stars next to each other. One, the bigger one, is going to start sucking away the gas and plasma from that other star. And one star is going to get smaller. Smaller might die. The other star might explode or become black hole, or both. So that's how you could kill the sun, with lions. So for doing the math correctly, at least how I think you're trying to do it, Iron Rick 95, you are now an honorary member of the facility. If you want to reach out, if you're watching this video, you can reach out, DM me, and I will get you your key card and your badge and your gun and your lab coat. Why do you need a gun at the facility? Stuff happens, man. Oh, your plaque's coming. Fantastic. What? What do you mean he's not in line and he's watching? Just a second. There's someone watching the stream right now who hasn't voted. I'm gonna go change that. This November 3rd, there is something you can do to relieve stress. No, it's not that thing that everyone on Reddit says they're gonna do that has 3 N's in it. It's voting for science. If you're an American, you haven't voted yet, we encourage you here at the facility to go vote for science now. If you want to relieve stress, one of the good ways would be to ensure that future generations of humans, your relatives, your son, your daughter, will have a planet that's gosh dang habitable. One way to do that is to vote for people and policies you know will address climate change. You could also vote for people and policies that acknowledge things like, oh, I don't know, vaccines work, evolution's a thing. We can do this. And no matter what happens, we can rest a little bit easier knowing that we did our part, our small part, in making our voices heard and for trying to reestablish the dominance of facts in society. Facts won't matter unless we make them matter. Since we're almost... Oh, hello. That guy had a cool voice. Since we're almost at the end of the stream, I just wanted to end with something just a little bit fun for y'all. So, last week, or earlier this week, I asked all of you on Twitter to send me your Halloween engineering social distancing solutions. I wanted to see how people were coping with this holiday in the midst of a pandemic, because I know it's many people's favorite holiday, and, you know, adults and kids alike, and they still wanted to participate, but they wanted to participate safely. So I wanted to see what you could come up with. And here's one fantastic example. This is the front of Lady Danger's house. Lady Danger is a streamer. She's an editor on Game Nights, The Command Zone, cosplayer. She's fantastic and smart. And what she came up with, she redid the front of her house or apartment to look just like an environment out of Saw, and obviously it looks fantastic, and then she put herself in a Saw reverse head trap thing from Saw 1 and 2, and then she was handing out candy with a long stick. This is... Ladies is probably the best that I've seen so far, but I saw a lot of other good examples from you all, which you sent me. Dr. Teresa, rather, sorry, incorporated a Don't Touch the Sides outfit. What is it? Operation? Jeez. An Operation outfit into her mask, which looked amazing. It fits right in. Wes said nothing too savvy, just good old-fashioned pre-bag candy and mask. So no kids were fishing around for candy, getting their little grubby virus hands all over it, with masks and fantastic costumes. Lady Dwin said she had a candy chute with masks and all outside. You can see she's sitting inside of her garage with a large candy chute. Candy chutes were the most popular option this year, it looked like. Adam Andrus says, my wife gets all the credit here. Disposable masks with a treat attached. So take a mask off of this, off the driveway. We're nowhere near you. Take a mask off the driveway and you get some candy. If there's one way to incentivize kids, it's V-Bucks for Fortnite and candy. Andy Atkinson says, this was one house in our neighborhood, not his. They dropped Ziploc bags of candy down the tube into a bowl, and a few houses had bags sitting out on the table to grab. And another tweet I saw, at the bottom of the chute with sanitizer before you touched anything. I would like if that bucket that it's going into was just a bucket of sanitizer and you'd have to pick it out. That'd be fun. But yeah, not a whole lot to say other than that. I do want to make a point. Humans are very clever, and these are all clever examples to get around a common problem that we're all having in a safe way. But while this is lovely, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. One thing you can do when you're voting for science is help get this pandemic under control. And I say that because this is a heartwarming example of learning to live with it. But we don't need to learn to live with it. In fact, that's the exact opposite response. That's what the virus wants. Learning to live with a pandemic is one of the most dystopian things I've ever heard. We know what to do. We have some of the best scientists, doctors, epidemiologists on the planet Earth, some of the smartest people who have ever lived at our disposal. One of the richest countries in the world. We know what to do. We know what policies we could start taking, what actions we could start taking, and policies we could stop pushing now. We could do this. We don't have to learn to live with it. We can start attacking it. I had something else to say. But I forgot what it is. Wrathfor says, we are still living with influenza, Kyle, is trying to make a counterpoint to me wanting to have a better response to coronavirus. I mean, okay, dude, if you really want to say something like that. But yes, we're still living with influenza, of course, but we're not still living with the 1918 influenza pandemic. Or like most of Europe died. There's a difference. There's a difference between something that we have a vaccine for that doesn't kill the same number of Americans every day that died in World War II every day. You know, there's a difference between that level of death and destruction and economic torment and a virus that has never been that lethal. Only variants have. Don't try to say things like that to make a false equivalency here. I'm not calling you out, but that's an incorrect and possibly dangerous thing to equivocate there. Rebecca Alexandre with the 10 says, Oi Kyle, amo o show. Means, hey Kyle, love the show in Brazil. Speak. Portuguese? Brazilian. What's the name? I'm not dumb. I'm just, what I don't know, I just ignore. You speak Portuguese, right? Am I crazy? I feel dumb. But you know who's not dumb? Rebecca, because she's a Brazilian geophysicist here to thank you for the great work. She's simping for science, and she's voting for science. About that paint, reverse Vantablack. Would it glow? Does it liberate photons to cool down? I don't know the research that thoroughly myself. I'm not one of the researchers, but I don't think it would glow. It would be very bright in that it reflects over 95% of incident light. So it would be very bright. It would be much brighter than any other white surface you ever looked at. But I don't think it would glow because why it's cooling itself down by radiating at a higher level infrared light, which you can't see, obviously. And you know that. I know you know that. But I don't think it would glow. It's not liberating photons to cool down. Rather, it's just reflecting more of them in a more efficient way. Sebastian with the 10, that's it. You know, because he's classy. It's Portuguese, right? Am I crazy? It's Brazilian. We speak Pedro Antonio Silva says, we speak Brazilian, and Portugal speaks European Brazilian. Okay. See, I took 5 years of Spanish, but I never knew the difference. See, that's on me. I was ignorant. You speak Brazilian. Got it. See, I learned something today, too. I know a lot about a little bit of science stuff, but in terms of other knowledge, I have little of it. Aside from hair care tips. You know I got that. Hannah Miller, always coming in with the 20. Kyle, thank you for your stream today and for pushing us to support science and be kind. I'm sure I speak for many when I say your office hours today helped us U.S. viewers manage our stress. Sim for science. I hope that this is some kind of a distraction. I know everyone's going to be doom scrolling and checking all night and into tomorrow and into the following days. I know it's going to be rough, but we're all still going to be here. We're all still going to be trying our best every day and learning and supporting each other. That's all we can continue to do no matter what happens. So we're going to continue to do that. Hannah, I know that's going to happen. And as always, and let's stop with the super chats. Everyone's just laughing at me about the... Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Brazilian isn't a language. I knew that. It didn't sound right. I just went with someone who sounded, the first person who sounded like they knew what they were talking about. It's Portuguese. Eduardo Rebelatos Haas says, we speak Brazilian Portuguese, but it's still Portuguese. I knew that. Who was it? Antonio? Who said that to me? You are banned. If my security team could go in the chat and nuke him from orbit, that'd be great. Don't try to find and poke holes in where I don't know stuff after speaking at length for an hour. Do you know who that's fun for? Just you and me a little bit. You pieces of junk. I'm going to learn to call you junk in Portuguesa. Music Central Piano, as always, with the $50 donation, says, keep up the great work, Kyle. Glad you put out an episode on this unnecessarily stressful day. Well, I think it is necessarily stressful. It's just, it was always going to be stressful. But, you know, we got to do it. Stay rational, stay safe, stay inspired. Hashtag vote for science. I cannot think of a better way to end the stream than that. Well, I mean, of course, I could understand. I can comprende Portuguesa. But other than that, you monsters, we learned a lot today. We learned about what laws might or might not be on Mars. Well, we suggested some. We learned about the reverse Vantablack white paint that I'm very excited about. We learned about a string of shark murders where swordfish are poking them in the brains. That's crazy. Took one of your comments from the last episode of the facility, and we looked at some of your homegrown solutions to a COVID Halloween. I see you all in the chat trying to tell me what junk means in Portuguese. I do not trust a word that you are saying. Not un palabra. Not un palabra. Not one. Okay? So, this is going to be an incredibly stressful week. All I can stress myself is that for you at home, if you're watching this show, you're probably a science nerd. All I can do is encourage you to vote if you're an American citizen. If you haven't yet, vote for science. I do not intend to sway you in any sort of political direction, but your North Star in that regard can be looking for people and policies that keep science and logic forward and restore a trust in institutions and scientists and experts. Let that be, if you're confused, if you're undecided, let that be your guiding light, as I have been your guiding light for hair care and products. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to join the conversation, if you want to continue this conversation afterwards, I might be... Look, I'm not going to... You can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill and join the facility today. You can get on our Discord. You get episodes early. You get behind the scenes, pictures. You get to message me. I'm going to be honest, might not be on the facility chat channels too much in the next day or so, but I'm usually there, and if you want to join me, I'll be more than happy to have you. Be nice to each other today, and all days, of course, but especially this week. This is going to be the most stressful time, literally, in a lot of people's lives that they've ever experienced. That's no joke. We should take it seriously. So be nice to each other. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, this is all we got. Thanks for watching.